What is going on, y'all? It is hold on. Do you want to be called Austin or Oz? Or
I don't care. Whatever rolls off first.
What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman, and I'm here with Football with Oz for the second episode of Against The Blitz to talk about the divisional round. But the beef and potatoes of this one is the coaching cycle, and I'm super excited to indulge in this conversation. But Austin, are you ready?
There's so many coaching jobs available. There was a pretty mass firing on Black Monday, and even before, there was, I think, 2 that happened mid-season. But the only one that has been hired so far has been Mike Vrabel to the Patriots. Did you have like an initial thought when that went down?
I mean, when I was putting my notes together for the hiring of Mike Vrabel, I found myself actually getting more passionate about the firing of Jerod Mayo, and like passionate in like a not like I was mad about it. I was like actually so happy that it happened, because the more I thought about it, the more frustrated I got. And before I touched on Vrabel, that was where like my biggest paragraph was about Mayo. Like, what were you? Did you feel the same way? Like he was absolutely out.
Well, I thought he was unqualified to begin with. Truthfully, I mean, you don't just go from a 2-year linebacker coach to head coach of one of like the greatest dynasties of all time. And I know he was groomed to be Bill Belichick's successor, but it didn't feel like he ever had like a grip on the team at all. I don't know if you've caught any interviews of Jerod Mayo, but they're bad. Like, everything he says sounds bad. Patriots fans hate him. The players don't seem to care about him that much. So like, I am the first person to ever be against firing a coach after 1 year. But he didn't do anything right in the process besides just drafting May. So I would definitely say I am much happier about Vrabel than Mayo by a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not even comparable. Like I said, I didn't even know I was like as passionate about it as I was when I was like writing out my thoughts. And like Robert Kraft came out after the fact and said, I like feel bad. You know, the cards he was dealt were very bad. Like, he didn't have much of a chance. And the fact that he still got fired, even though Robert Kraft had the awareness of how bad it was, just speaks to how bad that Mayo had to have been for that to be recognized, but still get fired. Like, it started, like, I think his first press conference, wasn't there like one of his original press conferences that went south very early on? And that was like the first indicator this guy's not trained press-wise.
Yeah, his introduction, I don't remember exactly what was said, but I remember after his like introduction press conference, like I remember like Patriots accounts were so upset that they hired him. And I'm sure as a Buffalo fan, you were happy about it. But yeah, it was rough. He seemed, I don't know about nervous, but he seemed out of place. Like, he still felt like a position coach talking, and he didn't feel like the head coach of the New England Patriots talking. So that's something I think Vrabel will immediately come in and fix for him. Is just having like a good like vision, a good model for the team.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I don't know how, you know, this guy's supposed to be, his Mayo's thing was supposed to be defense, of course, being a former linebacker. And it just was baffling to me. Like, not only was the defense so much worse, but like the linebacker play was so abysmal. Like, this guy was a linebacker, and these guys couldn't cover like a high school tight end. Like, these guys were like, their linebacker group was horrendous, which made no sense. And that was like, you know, as we touched on with the interview stuff, the press conference stuff, it seemed like he lost his locker room. He handled the quarterback situation very, very oddly, especially like the last game of the season was a perfect embodiment of the season that Jerod Mayo had. He played Drake May for one drive and then pulled him. What was the point?
I remember thinking that. I was watching Red Zone and I saw him come in. I thought he was just gonna have a full game. For some reason, you put a rookie quarterback in for one drive. It's not like he's Josh Allen where he's going for like a consecutive starts thing. Like, he's a rookie. This meant nothing. He didn't get any experience out of it. It didn't get anything meaningful from it. It was just like one last drive with Jerod Mayo. And I don't understand. It didn't feel like the process was like, obviously the results weren't there. There were 0 results, but it felt like the process was also nowhere near where a successful team would ever be.
Oh, totally. And another thing that was kind of a controversial topic, inside of New England and outside, was the handling of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Like, I understand that there is a very good chance that this organization, for what feels like the 15th consecutive year, whiffed on wide receivers they drafted, but it just felt like they weren't given a legitimate opportunity on a team that was so bad. Like, there's just no way that they could have been so bad to the point where they just weren't even able to see the field consistently. And Jalen Polk, I think, played the most. Most of his playing time came with Jacoby Brissett. Like, he didn't even get an opportunity to play a consistent number of snaps with Drake May, which it just doesn't make sense. You're trotting out Kendrick Bourne and whoever, I don't even know who else, Keyshawn Boutte. It's like, why are you wasting your time? Like, this season is already in the dumpster. You just drafted these guys. Why not give them an opportunity, regardless of how bad they might look? You got to find out. Yeah. And now they go into year 2 with 2 young receivers that they're probably not going to have a fucking clue what to do with.
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of things that were redeeming from that team. Alex Austin was good for a little bit. And Drake May, like, that's as far as that goes in terms of what went well under him. That wasn't well before. But I mean, I just didn't see his vision. I don't think the players saw his vision, which is, and like what you were saying, for a former linebacker and linebackers coach to have such bad linebackers, that's a tragedy if that's going to be your specialty. But like, thankfully, Mike Vrabel also was a linebacker and was a former Patriot. So hopefully for the second time around, this linebacker can actually have a good linebacking core and an actual good defense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Vrabel does. My first note about the Vrabel hire was I'm kind of on a wait and see basis as far as how I feel about it, because when he was originally fired, I was on a cruise and I didn't have constant internet. And I remember like getting back to my cabin and connecting to the Wi-Fi because I had to like manually do it because I had a limited number of minutes. And I got like 15 notifications from Twitter all at once. And it was all like, Mike Vrabel fired, Adam Schefter, Mike Vrabel's out. I'm like, what the like, that hit me like a truck. I was pretty shocked. Yeah. And it came out that there was a power struggle again in Tennessee. And then he wasn't hired during the next cycle, which also shocked me. So I wasn't shocked that he was hired this time around. He's more than deserving. He's a guy that I feel like always got the most out of his team, or more than you'd expect. They were always scrappy, competing. They can be, a 4-8 team, but they're going to play you like, a 10-5 team. That's kind of the energy Mike Vrabel brought. But the one hesitancy, and the reason why I say I'm on a wait and see basis, is I don't know how he's going to attack the structure of the offense with Drake May. And it worries me because the success of Drake May is going to hinge on the hire of the offensive coordinator. And if they go out and get somebody that is, not going to give him a long leash or not give him opportunities to be creative and play and lean into his skill set, and if they're just running the ball a ton and he's, play action boot and, dump it off or have the I'm just very afraid of the limitations that Drake May could find himself under with an offense that Mike Vrabel could potentially be envisioning with this new Patriots team.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a similar one. We've talked about other coaches before that have a limited ceiling. And I think Vrabel does come with a limited ceiling, unless they can find another offensive coordinator that can operate in like a separate hemisphere than him. Mm-hmm. But I think if he does have that control of the offense, I agree with you completely. I'm on a wait and see basis with that. The only reason I'm pretty stoked for Patriots fans is a big culture change. Vrabel's not really a guy you push around from a front office standpoint. And that's one of the reasons why I picked some of these teams that we talk about later as undesirable places, because of like the power struggle with the front office. And Robert Kraft can kind of be a little weird sometimes. He's pretty involved. So I think that having a guy like that won't be pushed around and can bring like an actual winning culture to this team. I mean, he brought Ryan Tannehill to the 1 seed in a good AFC. Like, it wasn't like he had like a cakewalk. Like, he earned a 1 seed and got a first round bye because they were pretty good with Ryan Tannehill and a pretty modest defensive personnel. So, I mean, at least if the defense can get fixed and the culture can get fixed in New England, I feel good about that. It's a start. You can figure out the offense later. People like Dan Campbell were never an offensive mind, but you hunt around and you find a good coordinator, and it's never been a problem. It's actually their strength. So, I mean, I'm going to give it time. I'm not going to panic after year 1, but I'm going to give it time till I think that they find the right OC, and then I'm going to start counting down. But I feel good about it.
Yeah, that's very fair. Even if the first guy they bring in doesn't work out, it's not like Drake May's going anywhere. No. I am just more as a Drake May supporter than a Patriot fan, just worried about where he could find himself. And, I don't know if Vrabel, I saw some interview Vrabel did recently where he was talking about how much he believes in running the ball. And, I don't know what he said word for word, but basically what I got from it was he kind of wants to bring back what he did have when the Titans were in the 1 seed. And, that was the offense he felt dominated, and, run the ball first, hit the play action shots. I think that's kind of what he wants, I would imagine, which is fine. I just feel like that might limit what Drake May developmentally could do.
Yeah. I think it helps you become, not that he's a similar player to Goff, but it helps you become this in structure, on time, accurate quarterback. But it does limit the gamer that Drake May has in him, that we saw a lot, where he would just roll out, sling it to Austin Hooper, hit him perfectly in stride. Like, he did it 10 times, I swear.
Yeah.
At least. But I think that will be limited, which can be good for development. You don't always want your quarterback having to scramble and run for his life. But when you have guys like Fedarian Lowe out there playing meaningful snaps, or Caden Wallace out there as like your starting left tackle week 1, like I mean, he was possibly like one of the worst situations I have ever seen in a rookie quarterback in my life. And thankfully for Vrabel, this is one of the best rookie running back classes in a while, with some pretty good linemen. So if that's his bread and butter this offseason, I think they can fix that pretty easily. The only bad part is finding your quarterback as a head coach, and they already did that. So finding a few weapons and a few offensive linemen shouldn't be a problem. So I am super optimistic. In like a good 3-year window, I think I'm going to give Vrabel here to kind of work with.
Yeah, I absolutely think it'll be. I think Robert Kraft, with some of the comments he made following Gerard Mayo's firing, I think he felt bad. He knew it had to be done. I think this time around, unless it somehow goes just as bad or even worse, he's definitely going to give leeway. Like, I really don't think he felt good about firing somebody, especially someone that was in-house for so long after just 1 year. So I would imagine he's going to have a little bit more leeway in that regard.
I know. But that's why I'm excited about Drake May too, because he looked like he never had a game where he looked special, but he didn't ever look bad. Like, he always looked very comfortable for being a rookie in such a bad situation. And like I was saying before, like, that's the hardest part of being a head coach coming in, is if you don't have your quarterback. And that's why I kind of want to talk about the Bears as one of the most desirable spots for me. Because, I mean, coming into a first overall pick quarterback is a pretty rare thing. Usually your coach would stay around after that. But the Eberflus thing felt like such a disaster in-house that it had to be done. So now a possible good candidate gets to come into Caleb Williams and co. with some pretty fun weapons and a good defense. So that's arguably my favorite spot.
Who do you have predicting?
Predictably, this is where I like Ben Johnson a lot.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot about how Ben Johnson's family wants to stay in the Midwest. It's not a far move. That's actually a big thing that I've heard is his thing. Having a creative quarterback like Caleb Williams, you have the weapons. You have a GM in Ryan Poles that he might not be good, but he's super willing to try and win for you. Like, he will do everything in his power to win. And I think with a little bit more time as GM, he can kind of tone it down and start actually winning these trades. But that's my spot for him.
Okay. Yeah. Ben Johnson's the big name on the block, and I
Mm-hmm.
have some thoughts about that when I get to where I predict him to go. But
Yeah.
for the Bears, I actually had Todd Monken. I
Mm.
I think his resume speaks for himself. He comes into Baltimore, Lamar,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he kind of grows into that full potential we all knew he could in terms of being a passer. He just feels fully grown now, and I think Todd Monken has a lot to do with that. 4,000 yard passing seasons back to back years with Monken.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly we're looking at a Ravens offense with weapons that are kind of similar to what they've been in the past, but now we view it completely differently. Even last year without Henry, Lamar still threw for 4,000. His weapons weren't great, but with a good offensive structure, a smart passing attack, they made it work. And that was something that, previous Greg Roman, cough, was unable to do. And we all
Yeah.
thought, it's the weapons. Well, it probably was to some extent, but bringing in a guy like Monken opens things up. So I think he ends up in Chicago. He was born in Illinois, I came to find out. So I think he might want to go home. And same kind of thing. Caleb Williams walking into a first overall pick. DJ Moore's there. Your running backs are interesting, but I still think they're talented enough to get the job done, and it's a good defense. So to me, Todd Monken is, the second best offensive mind available, and I would say he's a lot closer to Ben Johnson than people are going to give him credit for. So they won't land Ben, and I think they're going to do whatever they can. Ryan Poles is going to do whatever he can. Like you said, he's going to do what he can to win. He knows this is probably his last chance if he screws up this hire and all of a sudden Caleb struggles to, in the longer term, he's probably done. So he's going to do what he can to pair Caleb with the best offensive mind he can, and he'll be the next man up after Ben.
Yeah, Todd Monken was a guy, spoiler, I don't have him listed, but he's one of the guys that I really wanted to try and find a spot for him because he is a guy that I haven't heard enough from in like the interview cycle, obviously because he's coaching still, but like I haven't really heard a lot from people really wanting to interview Monken, but I don't really see why. He's not as old as I thought he was. He looked a little older than I think he's still in his 50s.
He's 58,
and, yeah. So, I mean, he looks 58 is perfectly young for a head coach still. Like you said, he's a fantastic offensive mind. Another name I actually kind of thought of that I almost put was Cliff Kingsbury.
Okay.
And not that I wanted him there, but his track record with these sort of young, athletic, scrambling quarterbacks is like that's his bread and butter. He started off with Mahomes, and then he moved to Kyler Murray, and then he moved to Jaden Daniels. Like that's just kind of like he tends to get like the best version out of these young, athletic quarterbacks and create a system for them to thrive in. And he's looked a lot better this year as a play caller than he ever has. So, I mean, I'm not going to hold his age 35 years against him in Arizona all the way. A lot of coaches start off bad. They go back to coordinator, they mature, and then they come back and become a pretty good coach. So I think he's another name to keep an eye on.
I like that. Yeah, I Cliff was somebody that didn't make my cut, but he definitely will be a top option. I think one of the most coveted options, assuming that this year finishes off on a high note, assuming next year Jaden's development continues on a positive path. I think Cliff will probably be one of, if not the most coveted option next year. There's been a lot of buzz with Mike McCarthy ever since he got fired going to the Bears. I can't get behind it. Apparently, there was like this big deal made on Bears Twitter that they flew a private jet out for him and kind of like rolled out the red carpet. But then it was followed up with like another report that they do that for everybody. So I was trying to get a read on how badly they actually do want him and if all of these rumors about him being their top candidate was true. I don't hate it. I just think there are bigger fish in the ocean to try and go for first. McCarthy just became available. I would imagine he's not, the top option for a lot of places. So I think if things really go south and you got to settle with McCarthy somehow with Caleb Williams, I doubt that happens. But, fine. But I would like to think if these other guys are out there, if Monken manages to escape this cycle and you go with McCarthy, I'll be very, very disappointed in Ryan Poles.
Yeah. McCarthy was another one that he wasn't a coaching fire. It's a very rare case where the coach just decides to leave. Like it was a mutual parting of ways in a sense that McCarthy just wanted out of Dallas. I think that he was tired of the way people were treating him, as fans. I think he was tired of Jerry Jones and Jerry trying to find his replacement and probably Jason Witten someday. So McCarthy's one that I did have notes down as to why he left anyways. It wasn't a firing, but he's another one that I think's a slight ceiling limiter.
Yeah.
I know he won a Super Bowl, over 10 years ago with Aaron Rodgers, slinging it. But I think with McCarthy trying to find a job, he goes somewhere that is in need of finding a head coach that has experience. And I think that has a place when you have such a young front office and you have young coordinators and you haven't been able to figure out how to properly run the football team, which I think McCarthy can do. He has his limitations with play calling and creativity and having guts, kind of how you were talking about Tomlin last week. He kind of has lost his guts. That's kind of where McCarthy is for me. But I think overall, I think it was smart for him to walk away.
Yeah, that job might as well jump into the Cowboys. With that said, the Cowboys job is an interesting one. I have gone on record these last couple days saying that I think Dallas is, in my opinion, the best place you can land as a head coach, and that's hit others as unpopular, and I get why. Although when I look at the field of opportunity in front of us, right? You have the Bears, who, they have a lot of shiny pieces, but there's a lot broken behind the scenes. Like, there's still a lot of legwork. I'm going to use that term a lot here. A lot of legwork to be done in Chicago. And then you look at a team like the Jaguars. There is a lot of legwork that needs to be done there. I mean, Shad Khan is just probably, for all we know, could be just as bad as Jerry Jones. He's just not as vocal about it. And the same thing can be said for Woody Johnson and the Jets. Like, there's this idea, and it's not an idea because it's true, that Jerry Jones is overpowering. He's too involved. He's probably the reason why they haven't found success in the last 20 years now. But as I was saying, there are other owners, as we've come to find out, that are just as bad. We just haven't known. So when I hear that as the rebuttal as to why the Cowboys job isn't as attractive, this is what I've been saying to them. And with that said, you have a quarterback that's Dak, 32 years old. I still think Dak is very good. Quarterbacks these days, and probably by the time he's closer to 40, will be playing on average to 38, 39, years of age. So he's still got quite a few good years left. He's under contract. CeeDee Lamb, they signed. They're not going to let Micah go anywhere. Their cap situation isn't the worst, and they have good draft capital. And ultimately speaking, I don't think this franchise is as broken as some of the other places are. So you come in and everything might not be as shiny. The opportunity might not seem as grand, if you will, but a lot of the headache is removed, it feels like to me. And you can jump into it and have a lot more success faster. And this is a team that just a couple years ago was atop of the NFC East a couple times. They were in talks to be a Super Bowl contender. Obviously, those fizzled out for XYZ reasons. But it just feels better for a lot of different reasons. So I wasn't mad that McCarthy walked away. I would imagine the reasons being because of Jerry Jones, but I don't know. I think that destination is not getting enough credit.
I have them number 2, which I have them ordered in list, and I think they're still a really, really good spot to land. Like, the only difference was not actually Jerry the owner, but Jerry the GM.
Yeah.
I think he just had a hard time parting from his guys, and I think that working together with a coach to find the guys that you want is pretty important. But I think if he gets the coach that he's been begging for, I think there could be a little bit of leg room there. I think he could concede a little bit and get the guys that the coach wants. Only other reason was just that your QB of the future is much younger. Caleb still has such a high ceiling, and Dak being 32. I do agree. Like, he is still good, and he still has probably like a half decade at least of pretty good football. So I'm pretty high on him. Do you have a guy for that one that you're really big fan of?
I mean, I'm not sure. I'd say I'm a fan. It's more of a prediction, although I feel a lot better about it than some of the other goofy ass names I'm hearing tossed around for this job. So I went with Kellen Moore. He feels like the odds-on favorite, despite the rumors of Deion Sanders and all that shit. And Jason, when I saw Jason Witten's name come up, I like curled up in bed and cried for Cowboys fans. I'm like if Jerry took this seriously for like 5 seconds, and this was the frustrating part for me. It's like if he took this seriously for 5 seconds, I really think this team could be automatically one of the best next year. Like the turnaround time could be so short. So
Jason Witten is a high school football coach. He's successful there, so that's his mind of like what being a successful football coach looks like. So
it's crazy.
Be prepared, Cowboys fans. That's going to be so much fun.
Oh, like if he goes and hires Jason Witten, I mean, he's going to have to blow the roof off that place and do extremely well for me to be satisfied.
He was a bad announcer. He was a bad announcer. I can't imagine what being a coach is going to be like for Jason Witten.
Oh yeah, I will be pissed, but I'm going to put some faith in Jerry that Kellen makes his return. You know, to go from quarterback to position coach a year after, you must be liked in the organization. To survive the firing of the head coach and his staff, like you did with Jason Garrett, you have to be liked by the organization for that. You know, I think he's somebody that they're familiar with. He has done well consistently wherever he's been as a play caller. You know, I just would like to think that even if they don't land the Ben Johnson or, you know, any of the other top candidates, like I don't think they will, then Kellen Moore is a good middle ground that makes a lot of sense. I just hope it's not like Witten. Like I will be mad. I don't know why I would be mad, but I would be mad.
Yeah, Kellen Moore's my guy. And then I also put Dion ? Right next to it, just because there's way too much traction going on. Like it felt like a joke, but there's a lot of traction going on, which doesn't make sense because they're not in position to draft Shedeur Sanders. They would have to trade up an arm and a leg to go get him. I mean, they can get Shiloh in the 7th round. You can get that one. He doesn't even like Shiloh that much. So, I mean, the one he does love, the child he does actually care for, is possibly going in the top 3. And that's going to – you don't trade up for Shedeur Sanders, especially when you have Dak Prescott, who was, statistic-wise, an MVP candidate last year. And now all of a sudden he sucks and he has to leave to the Raiders, like on a trade. Like that makes no sense to me.
I was shocked they extended him, honestly. Like I did think Dak was going to get shipped off to the Raiders. I said that like halfway through last year, like before he even got hurt. I was like, he's going to the Raiders. But
preseason last year, I made up predictions for like the next year of who I think will be the quarterback for each team, and I had Dak as my Raiders quarterback for next year, which isn't looking like it's going to happen. But I mean, with Jerry Jones, I don't know. Like that's the wild card about this team is like having a bad GM who is Jerry Jones. Like he's an owner and a GM now. And like that is such a hard thing to do when you're an incoming head coach, which is part of the reason why my Jacksonville head coaching scenario wasn't quite as high as some other people have them. Mm-hmm. Whatever thinking the world is of someone, I am the opposite of that with Trent Baalke. I may be Trent Baalke's biggest hater on this planet. I mean, he drafted 2 LSU defensive tackles this season, Jordan Jefferson and Mason Smith, and he got the wrong one. Mekhi Wingo that went to the Lions after that was so much better than both of them. Like he is the most ridiculous GM. He reset the Christian Kirk market. He paid Trevor Lawrence $50 million. And I'm a fan of Trevor Lawrence, but $50 million is insane. And I think a head coach going to Trent Baalke, who is like a unanimously hated GM, and Press Taylor calling plays still. I don't know what coach is going to go in there, but I'd like to hear what name you have down for Jacksonville.
Well, I saw a lot of people talking about this being Ben Johnson's top spot. It's not where I put him. From what I read, it seems like the only way that would happen is if Trent is gone, and I don't think that's happening. So that leaves Ben Johnson, not here. With that said, I do think this is another organization that feels like we have a young quarterback that we're desperately trying not to ruin. So we need to find an offensive head coach to fix him. Todd Monken's gone. Ben Johnson is gone to another team in my predictions, of course. So who's the next man up? For me, it was Liam Cohen. I don't think Liam Cohen is going to have like his pick of the litter necessarily, but I also do think he will get a legitimate opportunity somewhere. And if he's offered, he's going to take it. And I think the Jaguars are going to be fine settling with him. And the reason why I say settling is because I feel weird about Cohen. Like I think it just feels wrong to me that he is getting the Dave Canales treatment when, to me, Dave Canales, what he did was far and away more difficult, more impressive, much more deserving of a one-and-done coordinator role. Like, to fix Baker, to set that offense up to be successful, earn Baker a contract, like that was all on the back of Dave Canales and being able to instill confidence back in him and building that system for Baker to succeed. Cohen, I feel like no one really thought they would be just as good as they were with Canales, but they got better. And, this offense got explosive. Baker got gutsy again. Like it really, he took it to the next level, which I don't think a lot of people had on their bingo card. So credit to him for that. But on that same note, it still was off of the back of what Canales built. And it as impressive as it was, it doesn't feel worthy of a one-year coordinator stint vaulted into a head coaching role. It feels way too premature.
Yeah. Liam Cohen was my pick as well. I was very torn between him and someone I actually never picked a spot for, but I just really wanted to, and Joe Brady, which I'm sure you hope doesn't happen. But Liam Cohen, I had the same idea. He stays in his state, stays in Florida, and he's one that I had the same idea in that I don't think Jacksonville is as desirable. And someone like him to be a one and done and have the pick of the litter isn't really a thing. But he, in the last decade, has bounced from team to team pretty heavy. He doesn't usually stay in the same spot for more than a few years. He went from Kentucky to the Rams to the Buccaneers in the course of 3 years. So, I think that he's ready to just continue building on what he's been building. And I think the first head coaching job that offers him is probably going to take it. I think he would do a good job. I do agree. He didn't make the Buccaneers what they were. I think he did a fantastic job, though, with Bucky Irving and getting McMillan unlocked and unlocking what we saw with Kate Otten at one point. Got the best version of Godwin we've seen in a while. Still kept Mike Evans up with what he was doing. I would love to see what he did with Mike Evans, with Brian Thomas Jr. I think they could have pretty similar roles. I think Trevor Lawrence could have a similar role to what Baker did as like a more high volume passer. But yeah, I really like him there. It's just, I agree with you. It's a really weird fit because it doesn't feel like he created what's happening in Tampa and he kind of just managed it. So getting a one and done after that's pretty, it feels awkward. It's just an awkward fit, but it feels like the fit.
Yeah, it does feel like the fit, as odd as it might feel. But, and I do agree. I think this is a very, very awesome opportunity for him to really prove himself. I mean, obviously we're asking these questions about him, and now he has an opportunity to go into a dastardly situation and potentially make it his own, the way that we're questioning whether he could or not right now. So, and you have Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas. If you can't do it with that, then you're probably not fit. And, that's why a guy like Doug Peterson is gone and why a guy like Press Taylor will probably be gone 6 games in because they're going to argue about who's play calling. And I can't imagine that guy lasts very long if Cohen does make it because, if Cohen is going to be there, he wants it to be his offense. It's going to be his. Yeah. He wants it all his. And I think he could do a good job. I just, like I said, I feel like it's like wrong it's wrong toward Canales. It's like disrespectful to some extent.
Yeah. Even though he got his opportunity, it just feels weird that someone else also gets the credit for what he built. And he was impressive. Canales towards the end of the year, he really turned that thing around. So it was good to see that. Jacksonville was one where they need help on both sides of the ball. And I struggled picking defense or offensive-minded coach. But yeah, I could only settle with offense because I think that they don't really have much of a defensive foundation. Like that still needs built from the ground up. But their offensive foundation is there with T-Law, and I don't know what ETN has left. I mean, he had 1,000 yards last year. This was just a weird year. You have BTJ, you have what's left of Evan Ingram, you have Christian Kirk. Like I feel like the right coordinator and play caller could get pretty good stuff out of that. I mean, that won a playoff game minus BTJ. So I don't think that the offense is that far off. I think just what Press Taylor's been doing has been keeping them back.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's without even mentioning like a guy like Parker Washington, who I've really enjoyed. Like he took over that slot role, and I thought he was excellent and like a hidden gem for that team for a few games, a big bright spot, and even Tank Bigsby too. If Travis Etienne wants to take a shit on the side of the road, like go for it. Like Tank Bigsby is in the wings, and I think he's probably the better running back as far as I'm concerned right now. So, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This offense, it has all the pieces. I mean, it just has to be put together properly. So, and that's where Cohen comes in.
Yeah, it always feels odd picking a coach to play to the side of the ball that you're better at because you need to fix the defense. But that's kind of what I did with the Jets. Is I still picked them a defensive-minded coach, even though their defense isn't the one that needs the help. I think the Jets' offense really needs help. But I don't think an offensive-minded coach is necessarily what would save New York. I think that theirs is much more cultural and like team management wise than just play calling wise. So like, again, I'm curious to know who you got for the New York Jets.
I'm curious for you as well because I also went with a defensive mind.
Okay.
I scrapped this one together kind of late because this was the team I got to last. But I ended up going with Brian Flores. I think you're right, which makes me hesitate with this because I think you're right. There is a lot broken in that organization, and Brian Flores, granted, off the tongue of Ryan Fitzpatrick lately, and we heard some stuff while he was still the coach that was a little disturbing. That concerns me, and you make a fair point. Assuming that's changed, I do think Brian Flores could, take that defense and launch it to the moon. Like the amount of talent that unit has it's off. It's not fair. It's off the charts. I think they're probably more talented than they have. I think I would say they have more stars than Minnesota. They might not be more talented or more well-rounded, but they have the stars. They have the cornerback duo. Quinnen Williams is a monster on the inside. I mean, they have everything that they need over there. It just would come down to how he would handle Woody and how he would handle the culture that he would have to rebuild. But the other reason why I landed on Brian is because Connor Rogers, he's an insider for the Jets. He's actually, at least in my opinion, one of the most trustworthy insiders in the league. He didn't say that this was going to happen, but apparently he heard that there had been rumors of the Jets or let's say Brian Flores and Josh McCown teaming up to go to New York, and Josh McCown's the OC, of course.
Yeah.
So who knows how true that is, but that was just kind of the cherry on top for my choosing of Brian here.
Yeah. Mine was a similar idea. The only thing that scared me from Flores was the quarterback relationships that he's had forever.
Yeah.
That seemed to always go sour. And that's the one thing that Jets have been trying to figure out since I've been born. They had Chad Pennington for like 10 minutes, and then he got hurt forever. And they've had no quarterback since. So I tried to pick a guy that could be defensive-minded and be likable. So I settled on Aaron Glenn. Okay. This is my Aaron Glenn spot.
Yeah.
And it's only because he has a lot of playing time in New York on the Jets, as I believe a first-round pick for him a long time ago. And I think that they're probably going to run with Tyrod Taylor and a mid-round rookie at Dart, or I don't even know who else there would be at Milrow, but I'd like to have a guy like Glenn be a positive, but also bring that Flores intensity. So I kind of had the same thought process you had of building the culture, building the toughness. I just went for probably the more expensive coach, which it could be a better idea to get Flores if that's in their cards. I think Flores does run a better defense in terms of what the Jets have. But cultural wise, that's just kind of why I gave it to Glenn. But I also see them not wanting to give. I see you not wanting to give it to Glenn because I don't think Glenn would want to go there. But if they push all their chips, I think they can probably get him. And it's kind of funny you said McCown because that was the other name I actually wrote down for like my sleeper pick for the Jets. And that was in case I went the QB route where they've been trying to figure this out for like a century. And that would be their best shot is having a good quarterback coach who helped fix Darnold. And that would be perfect. So I don't think they're too far off. They have good players. They have good offensive weapons. And they have a good foundation of a line. It just doesn't play well together. But they have like 5 good individual linemen. And that's why it's weird.
Yep. That weird is a good word for the Jets. Like from declining a Jerry Jeudy trade because your grandson didn't like his Madden rating to Aaron Rodgers and the enigma dropping in the middle of the season. Like it just, I will say one thing for sure. Rodgers is gone, but in the case that Flores is hired, that guy will be out the door. I feel like that guy will be out the door in 2 seconds. Like I feel like those two dudes would not get along.
No, God, no. It doesn't sound like Rodgers has any shot of coming back.
No.
And it doesn't sound like he's getting picked up. Like from anyone. I have not heard a single positive thing about anyone having interest in Rodgers. From everything, it sounds like they are rolling with Taylor and either making a trade or just getting a rookie. Garrett Wilson's an interesting guy you could maybe trade out of and get a higher pick. But I am not envious of their situation trying to figure out that quarterback spot because they're out of options except for a steep trade for like a JJ McCarthy or someone. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough in New York right now. Both New York City teams. So
who's in a worse spot? I almost think I'd rather be a Jets fan right now because after some of the shit that came out about Joe Shane and that Nick McLeod situation, I don't know if you caught any of that. But I don't know. Brian Flores. Brian Dable was like, I understand he was coaching for his life at the end of the season, but that dude, it looked like he was gonna like, what's the terminology? Break a vein or what's that called? Bust a vein or
blow a blood vessel. I don't know.
Yeah, blow a blood vessel. I mean, he was losing his shit, and it came out after that. Like the players kind of supported his job, supported him keeping the job. So I guess that was somewhat encouraging. But I don't know. I feel like the Giants are also not in a good spot. I almost think just because of the talent, I would rather just have the Jets, even if Woody is
Jets are so much more talented. It's so weird seeing a team that has so much talent, like having their DBs, their linebackers, Quinn, and like you said, Quincy's good too.
Yeah.
Like they have so many, like they don't really have a lot of positional weaknesses. Like when you break down each position, except quarterback, like that's the only position that on paper isn't good. And that's kind of like, it's similar-ish to how I felt about the Saints, but not to the same degree. I don't think that they have the same like star power. But the Saints on paper didn't really have a lot of super bad holes that need fixed, but more just like the team needed a better direction and more excitement. It feels like I have not heard a single word about the Saints since like week 2 when they were good. And then they got injured and they fell off the face of the earth. But how'd you feel about the Dennis Allen firing first?
Oh, well, I mean, I thought Dennis Allen should have been fired before the year started. There were 2 guys after last year I couldn't stand, and one, maybe this might not have been the case for Todd Bowles. How long has Todd Bowles been the coach again? Has it been 2 years or 3 years?
I wanted to say 2 or it could be 3. Is it?
Well, either way,
I don't know. Yeah.
Either way, I thought Todd Bowles and Dennis Allen, they like fell under the same umbrella for me for a short time of just like completely uninspiring, like somebody I would not want to play for. Just there's nothing about their personality that I feel like if I was in the locker room, I would benefit from. Like I'm not going to listen to these guys talk and be excited.
No, he's just like a scarecrow. Yeah, like my notes for him are the shortest. I just wrote the word boring because that's just what he is. Like they're just boring. And their offense was humming for like 5 days with Clint Kubiak. when everybody was healthy. But aside from that, I have not been excited about a Saints game in 3 years. I think no one cared about Saints games. I don't think Saints fans cared about Saints games when Dennis Allen was their coach. And I don't think their players cared about Saints games. Like, there was nothing inspiring, and he's not a good enough play caller, especially as a defensive mind, Dennis Allen, to like keep him there. So my notes for who I think should be taking over the job, I just wrote the word exciting. So that's why I'm curious to see who you put for New Orleans.
So I went with Glenn. It feels like there were two options for Glenn, and it's New York or the Saints. My process of elimination told me that Flores has to get hired this cycle. Like I just could not. There was something telling me that there's no way he is still a coordinator next year. I've heard read no ties of him to New Orleans, and the other spot that I thought was going to be hiring a defensive coach was New York. So I plugged Flores to New York, and Glenn obviously having connection to the Saints. I also read that apparently Glenn's preferred destination is New York, which is crazy to say because of the whole front office situation. But and that he also, I guess, said that the Saints aren't his preferred. So this could be a scheme, a media scheme to maybe get an offer. Who knows? Yeah. But at the end of the day, like you said, this team needs excitement. They need a leader that, kind of brings that Lions energy. I mean, somebody that will pick up the locker room, that will have guys ready to play every week for him. And exciting is a good word. And I think he can get that defense, which has been historically over the last 5, 6, 7 years now, one of the better units. They're obviously falling off. A lot of guys are aging. That defense is old. A lot of those guys are old, but Aaron Glenn, I think, could turn that defense around, and then hopefully the offense will follow suit. Who knows what happens with Derek Carr, and that quarterback situation, but he at least will figure out the defense, and they'll go from there.
Yeah, I actually went a different exciting. That's where I put Joe Brady.
No,
because damn it. I know he gets to go back to where it all started in Louisiana. And bring in excitement. And it's not necessarily like personality, because I don't know if that's really his game or not. But play calling wise, and what he's been able to get done from passing offenses and made a career out of it is really exciting. Thinking of like having Olave. I know Shaheed's a free agent, but I feel like they can bring him back for a reasonable price. I don't know how much longer Kamara has, but he looked really good this year. And their offensive line, when healthy, was actually really good. That's why they were dominating so much, because Clint Kubiak had the offense moving. And if Joe Brady, I think, can combine his knowledge with what Clint Kubiak can do as a rushing guru with the offensive line, like, that is so exciting if they can just not have Derek Carr someday.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Carr hater. I'm actually higher on Carr than most, but it's just the fact that he's just such a limiter. And I think that when they finally find their guy, having Joe Brady would be so much fun. And that's the word exciting.
Yeah, it would be for Brady and the Saints. I honestly left Joe Brady off my list, but not because I wanted him to stay. Like I do this objectively as much as I can, but I'm hoping and I'm thinking that he is there. There are so many offensive guys out there right now that are getting a lot of traction. I'm hoping maybe that Brady just kind of falls lower on that list and the spots will just run out. Hopefully. I'm also hoping that maybe he gets like the Josh Allen tax. Like, okay, obviously he's good. He's got fucking Josh Allen. Like, I'm hoping that. I hope the Josh Allen tax keeps him around for one more year.
Yeah, maybe. I'm pulling out that he only had Shakir cards. Joe Brady made this up, but I don't know. I think he's a QB guru, and it's hard to fit him there because they don't really have their quarterback of the future. I don't think Rattler's it. It's definitely not Jake Haener.
No, it's not Jake Haener.
Sorry to Rico knows, but yeah, it's not Jake Haener. But
I'll unblock Rico knows every once in a while just to see what he's fucking doing.
Yeah, I had him blocked for so long.
I didn't because I like enjoyed hearing him talk about the dumbest shit. but then it got so insufferable that I'm like, I can't sit here and listen to this anymore. Like, there was a point where I enjoyed it because I just could not believe the blasphemy he would spew. But then it got so bad. It got so bad for him. Like, for him to cross his own line was insane. Like, he was on like TikTok Live. The caption would be, "I make more money than your parents," and he's like beefing with kids about like his income. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? It's like 10 a.m.
Him and JamesDroz are the only dudes I've ever blocked in my life.
You can't block JamesDroz. Why
I did.
Why?
After the AFC Championship, when the Chiefs beat the Bengals, I opened my phone and I saw the Bengals. What happened? And I got so mad at him. I blocked him immediately. And I haven't unblocked him.
That was probably the peak of JamesDroz too. Like,
Yeah.
that was like probably his highest peak was around that time.
I can't do it. I was so mad at him. I don't care. I love him. But not that day.
Crime. That's got to be a crime. Like, blocking JamesDroz has to be like a sports fan, a TikTok sports fan crime.
Oh, no, he went after me. I couldn't do it.
Oh my god, that's
me
awesome.
Specifically.
Yeah, I'm not a big like social media block kind of person, but Rico was the one that that really.
Those are my two.
That was. Well, the last have we gotten through?
I think there's one more, and I think this would make sense to see where you put you know who.
Yeah. I have some thoughts about you know who with the Raiders. Yeah. So the Raiders are obviously last. Well, first let's talk about the bald man that was escorted out, not named Robert Saleh, Antonio Pierce. Well, how did you feel about that situation, that firing?
That was the most like conflicted I've ever felt about. And not that I didn't agree with it at all. I don't think that he was ever qualified to become their coach.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, it was weird to hire him with Gardner Minshew and Zamir White meant to be your future. And then they trade away Devontae Adams. And then they're like, okay, well, you didn't win very much, so you're gone.
Yep.
Like, you shouldn't have expected wins with Antonio Pierce. The only saving factor he has is that the players seem to love him. I don't think he's a good coach. I don't think he should ever been kept as their head coach from being interim head coach. So I'm not going to sit here and say I think that he should stay. I think it was just weird to hire him in the first place and then give him 1 year because we knew who he was. It wasn't like it's like we're shocked he wasn't a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's weird, but I do think the Raiders should have had a different head coach going into 2025. So I agree with it overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was in over his head. Like,
he
kind of fit that like culture kind of mold when it comes to being a head coach. That was also supposed to come with some like defensive prowess. You know, obviously the pieces aren't great, but they did bring Christian Wilkins. What the fuck is it? Christian
Wilkins.
It was Christian Wilkins. Did he get hurt? Is that why? Like
early.
Very
early. Adam Butler played well in his wake, but yeah, it was Christian Wilkins. Okay. Was supposed to, like, him and Max Crosby were supposed to do up and have a great front seven on defense, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I don't hold that. Like, he had Max Crosby and 2 weeks of Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers for so like he didn't have anything to work with. But yeah, I see what you're saying, where it's just like the process was not there.
Yeah, definitely. He, like you said, he just shouldn't have been the coach in the first place. The defense was, I never really felt like it performed above expectation either, outside of like the one time they beat the Ravens.
Yeah, they were great that game. I loved that game.
That was like probably the biggest like Twilight Zone moment that's happened in the NFL this year. But and then on top of that, I mean, the biggest problem I had with him was like he was an atrocious game manager or clock time manager. Like, the guy so many times would decide to punt on 4th and 1 at like the 48-yard line. Like, dude, like those are inexcusable mistakes to me in this day and age of the NFL. And that's why I was so mad at Mike Tomlin, because I feel like it has been proven to be so much more beneficial to be aggressive in those situations over these last couple of years. And these guys are just not getting it. Like, how much more data, how many more successful teams can you watch do this until you do the same thing? And I don't know. It's weird. Like, it kind of goes against who Antonio Pierce is supposedly supposed to be, like this hard nosed, like get in your face, I don't give a shit, like kind of guy. And 4th and 1, nope, punt it. Okay, well that goes against everything you seem to preach. So yeah, I thought it was a justifying fire, not a justifying hire.
Not a justifying hire. Yeah.
But what about Tom Telesco? Now, talk about a guy that got like fucked, like stabbed.
A year.
Yeah. Like he got screwed. I don't think I've ever seen a guy do his job so well and then still get fired. Like in life, period.
Yeah. I don't know what they expected him to do. I guess they wanted a quarterback. I don't know what they were wanting to happen with this season, but I think getting rid of Devontae Adams was a fine move. You get capital for a disaster of a season. He was never going to be useful to you anyways. I think that was a good trade. And I mean, I don't see what he did that was so wrong drafting wise, or I mean, it's not his fault. Christian Wilkins didn't play. He was hurt.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think giving somebody 1 year to not even see their plan unfold is pretty stupid for a front office position. Yeah, and kind of the firing factor of who I picked for my head coaching candidate in this was centered around Mark Davis and who I think he would be dumb enough to pick. So I don't have Ben Johnson because I put him in my notes as someone who they should go after because of Tom Brady.
Right.
But because of Mark Davis, who I found out is also in his 60s. I thought he was like pushing 100.
Yeah, seriously.
So I thought he was like almost dead, but he's 69 years old. Oh. Yeah, I picked Mike McCarthy to take over as the Raiders head coach because I picked the most boring, like old school approach that the Raiders could possibly go. They went back to Gruden at one point, and then they go for Antonio Pierce. Like, this feels like the slide right in there. Sorry, Raiders fans, but that's predictably what I think will happen.
That feels very fitting for, like you said, the track record. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I do think I'm higher on Mike McCarthy than the average person. Like,
yeah,
I think if it came down to it and he ended up with Mike McCarthy, fine. But then I would have to wonder, which we would never find out, what transpired for you not to end up with anyone else. Like, yeah. I feel like the capital, the situation that they have, it's beneficial. I think Brady is a big draw, and I also think he's pulling a lot of strings. And I also, on top of all of that, think he's probably why Telesco got fired, because I think it's a play to get Ben Johnson, because as far as I know, I don't know how true it is, but from what I read, Ben wants to be in a situation where he's like lock and key with the GM. So I think this is a long-term play to bring Ben in and then find a GM that he likes to be on the same page with. And then go from there.
I can't remember how many teams are in need of a GM. I know the Jets, but I can't think of anyone. I can't remember anyone else, but I've heard a lot about the Lions. Yes, they do. Yep. Yeah. But I've heard about a lot the Lions assistant GM as one of the main guys to fill in for head GM positions. So, I mean, I guess just wherever hires him could be the team that I think Ben Johnson will go to. And I think throwing some money at that guy, I feel terrible, I forget his name, but I think that could be a great strategic move to try and pull Ben Johnson to your team. So if we see at any point the Raiders sign the assistant Lions GM as their head GM, I think we know where Ben's going.
Yeah,
that'll be a fun thing to look at.
I mean, at this point, I feel like it seems the pull of Ben there seems so strong. Like, it feels like there's a lot of buzz, and it's gotten loud. Like, the buzz is loud.
That's why I didn't pick it, because it felt like there was too much positivity going towards the Raiders, and I was like, not since I've been born. Like, they are not allowed to have anything going well for them. I was there when they lost the playoff game in Cincinnati. Like, I am.
Oh wow!
I am there for everything bad to ever happen to the Raiders. So my last one is Mike McCarthy. I'm sending him your way. I don't think he's a bad coach, but I think, like, if you get to pick up, you get the pick of the litter at this point. There's only been one coach hired, and like, I think that with all these high upside guys like Ben Johnson and Glenn. I think they're just going to stick with the vet, the easy choice, the experience, and kind of have what they've had since their last playoff run. But
I think
it'll be
Raiders fans would lose their mind. I think I know a couple of Raiders fans, they would lose their fucking shit if they went and got Mike McCarthy. I know, and those guys that I know, I don't think they want like Shador either, which is a possibility. So I think they'd freak out about that. I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, I don't know either.
At QB, it's either you know what it's going to be? That's where Russell Wilson's going to go.
No.
Russell Wilson will be the next quarterback for the Raiders.
I'd rather have Rodgers by like just go get Rodgers. Do what you have. If you're gonna default.
I'm gonna write it down now. Actually, I'm gonna write down Russell Wilson. They're gonna draft Jalen Milroe in like day 2, and that's gonna be their thing. They're gonna go for the dual threat quarterback. That's gonna be their next move. They're gonna get like a Cam Scatabo way too early. Way too early. That's what they do.
Oh man!
Oh my gosh! I'm sorry, Raiders fans, but yeah,
you were wishing hell. You were wishing hell on this poor franchise.
I can't ignore the prophecy; it's in my head.
Oh man! Well,
that's what I do.
The last thing I wanted to say about Ben Johnson, which might sound insane, mostly because I have no evidence to support this, but like. When is the last time you have seen a head coach candidate get this much hype or be so highly coveted? Like this guy's being treated like the Messiah.
Never in my football watching has there ever been a coach that like is universally wanted by every single team and like loved like around the media. Like I've not heard a bad word about him. Nothing like personality or coaching wise, like nothing. So it's kind of weird almost.
It's bizarre. Like that's my point. It's like there is nothing negative at all. And what if he's a flop? I mean, I feel like no one is thinking about the possibility that this guy is a flop. And this is part of the reason why I am high on Monken, or at least I think he's comparable to Ben, because I'm not holding Ben Johnson on this pedestal the way that it feels like everyone and their mother is. Like he is a part of the Detroit Lions organization. He shows up. I'm not in the locker room, but he shows up and his job is to construct the offense. He doesn't really have to worry about who they're bringing in. I'm sure he has influence, but their general manager, Dan Campbell, they got that locked down. They're handling that. And those guys are the lead. Like, I haven't heard, praise about Ben Johnson being a leader the same way that Dan Campbell is or Aaron Glenn is. Like, he has nothing to really worry about but his craft. And when you're a head coach, there's a lot more stuff going on. You have a lot more bullshit to deal with.
Yeah.
We don't know how he's going to handle that, all of that responsibility. And I'm not saying he's going to do bad, but relative to his expectations, I think it's more likely that he flops than not because of how ridiculously insane people are expecting him to do wherever he goes. Like, it doesn't matter where he ends up, and people are expecting that franchise to be automatically turned around.
I don't ever see an automatic turnaround. I do think that there could be something to the Kevin O'Connells that are genius minds, but also seem to be pretty intelligent people aside from that, and a good leader. And like Kevin O'Connell is a like bona fide good football coach. He's a good head coach. And I can see him being a pretty similar person to that, where he can resurrect a quarterback, resurrect an offense. But it also comes with having a guy like a Flores as defensive coordinator and a GM that's young but willing to really work with you. So I do think there's something to, I don't know if Ben Johnson can just come in and save the franchise. And I do think that there's going to be a need for a supporting cast and a good one. Because like an offensive coordinator, a young one at that, can't just come in and fix the defense, fix the rest of the coaching staff, fix the draft picks. Like, it's a lot more than just getting Ben Johnson on your team. And another thing is, like, I think I've heard him maybe speak a sentence in my life.
Yeah.
And, like, I've seen people like that. On top of him being pale, there is a good chance he could be part vampire at minimum. Because I've never seen him, like, I don't know. It's just
I've never seen him speak.
Dude.
I don't think I know what he sounds like.
No, I don't think we've ever seen him sleep. It could be like upside down in a casket in his own soil. Like, it's the weirdest coaching thing because, like you said, I've never heard him talk. Maybe I heard him talk once about Aaron Glenn, and he was quiet and stern, and I wasn't jumping up and down ready to like go to war for Glenn like he was trying to do. He was trying to talk up Glenn and say he's going to be a great head coach, but he was just saying it. He was just like, yeah, Glenn would be a good head coach. He's definitely a really good candidate. But it's like, it's so much more than that for being a good head coach. And we've seen guys like Spags in Kansas City where he's tried to take on different roles than he has, and it's kind of awkward. And you might just be a really good coordinator for your career. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. You still make more than I'll ever make. It's just like being the head coach is different than just being a really good coordinator or a really good football mind. It's so much more to it.
Yeah, it's like the really weird and probably very bad analogy that just came to my mind is like he's like the kid in math class that you know is absurdly smart. He knows what he's doing, but the second you ask him to go up and present like what he's doing or try to explain his thought process or just like be in front of the class and be the one like, you know, up there in front of people and leading essentially something, he crumbles. Like he can't do it or he struggles. And all of a sudden, like the smart math kid in the corner of the class that doesn't speak is, you know, a vulnerable guy in the front that is struggling to take control. Like that's the vibe I get here. He's the weird kid in math class in the corner that doesn't speak, but is really fucking good at what he does. We just don't know what happens if we take him out of his element. Like he is in the most ideal situation for a guy like him. He doesn't have to be the voice, the leader. He doesn't have to figure out who the fuck's on his field because, quite frankly, he probably doesn't care because the talent's good for one, and for two, he's going to figure it out either way. But what happens when he is heavily involved in picking personnel? And that goes for roster and his coordinators. Like, I don't know. I'm skeptical, and not because I think he'll do bad, but I think there's like I said, a higher chance that he flops relative to expectations than people are giving any sort of credit for.
And I like to think he will succeed. I mean, I don't know, so I'm not going to speak on his personality. But just from what I can observe, I don't think he's that like field warrior, inspiring locker room guy. And that is important. Like you even see geniuses like Andy Reid, like everyone loves him. Like they'll gift him a hamburger and a shoebox for a gift. Like they love him. Like everyone loves Andy Reid. And guys like Kevin O'Connell seems pretty personable despite being a very similar football person to Ben Johnson. So I do struggle to find a comparison of somebody that is genius level football. Like if I give him a pen and paper, he can draw me up the craziest plays. But like, when was the last time there's been a really good coach that is almost reserved and just a creative coordinator? Like I can't think of one.
Yeah.
Like, most great coaches are outwardly aggressive, in your face, like having high expectations and being like they're like generals on the football field.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, that's also a good way to put it. I just don't see him as a general, and we're not in the locker room. You said that, I said that, but we can only analyze and express how we feel about what we see, and that's what we've seen. And I think you would be lying to yourself unless you live on the street next to, you know, the stadium, and you know you see him interacting with people on the sidewalk. Like you wouldn't know either. Like no one would. And we can only agree on the fact that the guy is very quiet, and he definitely has not expressed publicly the leadership skills that Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn have. And granted, those are high bars to meet, but still.
Yeah. And I don't want it to be passed over that he definitely still could be a vampire.
Yeah.
I was kind of joking, but if I was going to pick one person in the NFL that was a vampire, it would be Ben Johnson. So I will also write that down just in case that comes out.
Who would be Vampire 2 then?
Nick Sirianni comes to mind immediately.
Nick Sirianni, he's just a douchebag, though.
Well, vampires can be douches too.
They could
be. I'm talking about the look, strictly the look. That pale, sunken eyes. He's definitely a vampire.
Oh my god, Nick Sirianni.
I'm gonna write that down too, really quick.
Yeah. I can't.
So when it comes out that they are vampires, I'm gonna make a bunch of money.
That guy is just something. That guy to me, I wish he was fired. Talk about a guy that I wish was fired. I don't care if they won the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Fire him. I don't care. There's no way he does anything.
Yeah.
I don't think he does anything.
That team is Howie Roseman is responsible for 99% of what happens. But also to my point earlier that firing a GM after 1 year is stupid. Howie Roseman didn't make the playoffs for forever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the exact amount of years that he was GM before they made the playoffs, but it was almost too long.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't have given him that much of a chance, but you just get better as you go on. And he is now the bona fide best GM in football right now. So on top of talking about the Eagles, do you think that the Rams have enough juice after what we saw last week to do it to Philly?
Oh man. I don't know. That Eagles defense is just so ferocious. They're going to need a generational performance from Stafford. Not to say that's not possible because he very easily could pull one out of his ass any given Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's a tall task. You're not only dealing with a pass rush of 4 guys that gets consistent pressure, but a secondary of super talented, super quick, super athletic defensive backs that, outside of Puka, Cooper Kupp's, I still think he's very, very good at football, but he's not the quickest like he used to be. Quinion Mitchell, Cooper, these guys they're just fucking quick. They get to the ball fast. It's going to be it would have to be somehow a Kyron masterclass on the ground, which I also don't think would happen because
I think Jalen Carter at some point in the game is going to pick him up. He seems to do that every once in a while where he'll just pick you up and carry you around and just embarrass you.
That's what I mean.
I think I'm going to call my shot. That's going to happen this game. I think Jalen Carter is going to just dominate Bo Limmer on the inside and just I think he's going to knock Bo Limmer backward up 5 times. I think it's going to be a massacre. But even then, what happens when you get to the second level and Zach Bond's just sitting there with a smile on his face, just slams his head into yours and knocks you out. It's going to be brutal for the Rams to move the ball with any sort of consistency. And the only way they can hope is if Saquon doesn't make it to the stadium and then they have to just Jalen Hurts it for the rest. That's their only shot.
Which I think is, this is the same guy that was finding a probability or a possibility to a Steelers victory last week. But look, if Saquon, that Rams run defense is not bad. They are stiff, that front seven.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be, they're not going to be moving the ball on the ground like they've been used to this year. It's going to be tough sledding. If they're going to stick to the run, Saquon's going to get pounded between the tackles. He might have a few runs go for over 10 yards, but he's going to get whacked, and it's going to be tough, like I said, between the tackles. So it's going to come down to, Jalen Hurts, who we talked about last week. But, I went and watched the game back for Hurts, and I somewhat understood, we kind of touched on how Dan Orlovsky said, Jalen Hurts did what he could with the game plan, and I still disagree with that because he still didn't look good with what he did with the game plan. But if, and this is a separate tangent, but Hurts to me, I just want to talk about Jalen Hurts for a second. I don't know why. I had this urge earlier.
Do it.
Emmanuel Acho's dumbass. I can't stand that guy.
I hate him too.
He was talking about Jalen Hurts, and he speaks like he's preaching. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
But he's if we don't start moving the goalposts as to how we analyze Jalen Hurts will forever have a headache. And basically what he was saying is Jalen Hurts does his job. It might not look pretty. He might not be required to do much, but his role is to help the team win no matter what that looks like. And that's how we should analyze Jalen Hurts. And sure. Okay, you could say that about any quarterback for one. And for two, the part that frustrated me about that is you can't watch Jalen Hurts and tell me right now he looks like a top 10 quarterback or a quarterback that can lead an offense down the field in a 2-minute drill. It just doesn't look like it. He, to me, not only has been struggling as a passer, but he's supposed to be like a premier dual threat. I think he's an overrated rushing quarterback. Like, I don't think
he's going that way.
Yes.
Going that way or that way. He's not that quick.
No.
He runs hard. Like, when he gets going north and south towards the end zone, he's pretty good.
It's a tough tackle.
But like, for some reason, I feel like every time I watch Jalen Hurts, he kind of starts floating back this way and with no pressure. He just starts going back that way. And then he'll start feeling pressure that he created. And then he does a weird loop. Like, he doesn't ever step up in the pocket where he has like 5 Pro Bowlers protecting him. He just starts running. Like, he creates his own pressure, scrambles out. It's really weird. He doesn't have a very strong arm, despite throwing a pretty good deep ball. Like, velocity-wise on intermediate throws, he doesn't have a lot of oomph there. So every time it feels like he gets out of the pocket, it's actually like a disadvantage for him. Which is weird being a dual threat, because anybody, like, once Lamar or Josh Allen leave the pocket, I get scared. I get more scared. But when Jalen Hurts leaves, I'm like, okay, the rep's almost over. Like, we just not got him.
And that's exactly how I feel. Like, anytime I see him try to escape, like, he's not a good broken play quarterback. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like, he's not getting away from your quicker edge rushers. He's not getting away from a linebacker. If he gets out of the pocket, it probably results in a throwaway. Like, there will be some times where he can hit a throw on the sideline or something, but it's not consistent for someone you would think it would be with.
And the way I always, like, I know everyone's so tired of hypotheticals, and I am too, to a degree. But with quarterbacks, it's always a fair assessment to, if you put them on a different team, what happens? And I don't know what range I would put Jalen Hurts in. I would say just outside the top 10, in that range, like 10 to 15. If you put Jalen Hurts on the Steelers or the Browns or the Falcons, like, I don't think that he's taking them that far. And I don't think that he can support a good passing game if it's not for having 5 fantastic linemen, a good tight end, 2 great wide receivers, an elite defense, and the best running back in football. Like, there's not a weakness on his roster where he ever has to pick up the slack for him. He can just be average, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns and win the game. So, like, I'm not going to hold that against you. But when it starts getting dramatic and we start talking about him as a top 5, like, or closer to that kind of range guy, that's where I draw the line. And I can't get on board with the overambitious Jalen Hurts love. I can't do it.
I agree. He's just a bizarre case study to me. Just somebody that coming out of school was that dual threat. He's a guy that I feel like I recall being better after a play breaks down than he is now. Like, I just feel like he's just almost regressed in some of the strengths that he played to earlier in his career. Like his best highlight was him taking a read option and the defensive end read it, and then he like did the hardest step inside. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now, anytime I don't think he takes read options much anymore because he can't get outside, and then he tries that move, and everyone knows it now, so he just gets stuffed.
Yeah, because like they're not getting put on a sweatshirt, like they're not getting embarrassed anymore. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's only a few outcomes from a Jalen Hurts drop back. He's either going to sit back there and stand still and deliver the super over the top boom ball to AJ Brown, or you're going to see him hit the outside flat to Dallas Goedert or Devontae Smith. Like, there's only so much access of the field that he has. Like, when you see like the top processors, even like a Burrow or a Goff, who aren't elite dual threats, but they have access to the full field. Like, when they hit their drop back, like, anything between this can be hit. and you have no idea where it's going. But with Jalen Hurts, like you have a good idea of what's going to happen once you find out that he's throwing.
Yep.
So he's a dual threat in the sense that he can run it or he can pass it. But once he's already in the mode to pass, I don't think he's running anymore. I'm not scared of him.
I mean, this would probably be insane to say too, but the way like Baker ran at times this year, hell, I would call him if Jalen Hurts is still a dual threat in people's eyes at this point, then Baker is too. And I would argue he might be better with the ball in his hands at times. Like
I think
you don't get the QB power with him, but
no.
He still escapes. He still runs away from guys. He'll bowl someone over. Like I don't see how Jalen Hurts is a better dual threat than Baker at this stage of his career. And it's just so weird to say that. I
think it's because being a good rusher as a quarterback is just pure like guts. It's just balls. Like I'm not like I think Josh Allen's one of the best rushing quarterbacks we've ever seen. I don't think he's a top 20 athlete to ever play the position. He's a great athlete, but for how good of a runner he is, it's just because he runs super hard
with his size too. He just plays to his size.
Mm-hmm. And he's so willing to run you over, but he has the ability to run as hard as he can. He's not scared of getting hurt, and he runs like a tight end does. And Jalen Hurts is built like a linebacker. He's like 6'1", like 225, like pure muscle, but he acts too much like a quarterback. Like Baker Mayfield is a short little bowling ball and acts like it. Like he runs you over. He's not afraid of you at all. He ran over Bobby Wagner.
Dude, that was crazy.
When has that ever happened? When has a running back ever ran over Bobby Wagner, let alone Baker Mayfield? I mean, Colin Cowherd thinks he can tackle Baker Mayfield.
No, you cannot, buddy.
He's like, I'm his size. No, you're not. First of all, you might weigh the same, but Baker Mayfield's all muscle. So like, yeah, good luck. But yeah, that's what's missing from Jalen Hurts, I think, is aggressiveness. As like a power rushing quarterback, you have to be aggressive as a runner and aggressive as a thrower if your whole thing is your deep ball. And this year, that's felt like it's been lost. Like I think he wants to be this cerebral, passing quarterback that everyone kind of makes fun of him for not being. So he's going away from his roots as a deep ball thrower and a power rusher, and he's trying to be something he's not, and he looks worse doing it.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Like and I think that almost plays into his personality too. It's like these other quarterbacks, they're just psychopaths. Like Josh will truck someone over and then like get up and laugh. Jalen Hurts, if he's in that situation, however much it happens anymore, he just kind of has a straight face after the game. Obviously, very mellow. There's no emotion typically with this guy, and you can like there's this vibe to him that if you walked into his office, like all of the files in the filing cabinet would be perfectly labeled, and like the pen would be centered on the middle of his desk perfectly. And that's the type of quarterback that it feels like he's trying to be. And I feel like that's a perfect way to put it. And he's not aggressive. If he had that psycho mindset, he probably would be better. And that's kind of where I'm like disagreeing with Acho's ass. It's like if there were the times when he could throw for 130 yards and a touchdown and a pick all he wants. I don't care what his stat line looks like. If he still has the flashes of like, holy shit, like that's vintage Jalen Hurts, or that was just a flat out great play by a dual threat quarterback here and there throughout the game. That's enough for me. But we don't see that at all. And that's what's concerning.
It was the Super Bowl. Like that's where I was historically pretty low on Jalen Hurts before he played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and he played really, really well, I thought.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed my mind on him not being aggressive enough. He ran really hard. He threw some balls he shouldn't have, and they worked. Like, it was a great throw. And that changed my mind on him going into the next year. And then he immediately let me down, and he made me look bad. So now I'm all over you. But it does feel like what you were saying, where he has like an image that he's trying to uphold as this like stoic quarterback with the perfect goatee, and like he's just farming for people to love him. Like if I was ever gonna use aura farming unironically, it would be right now. Like I think that he has an Anakin Skywalker wallpaper on his phone, and that is just what he wants to be, and it's weird. And he's just it's the same vibes that Russell Wilson has given off forever of trying to become a quarterback you're not, being a person that you're not. and it just feels awkward. It feels weird.
Yeah.
Not to say it's wrong if you have an Anakin Skywalker wallpaper,
Yeah.
but that's just how it feels.
Dude.
Just have one.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I think it's just it's weird. I think it does, and that's a weird connection to make. Like, I think we're onto something here. Like the connection he's trying to have mentally to his on-field play. I think we're actually onto something. Psychoanalyzing the Jalen Hurts. I think he's a fucking enigma. Aaron Rodgers is so transparent. Yeah. I think Jalen Hurts is the enigma.
Yeah.
Like, Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl. Did you watch that stupid documentary?
No, I refuse.
I watched it. I was a sap, and I watched it, and like. He acts like he's misunderstood. It's like, no, everyone understands you.
Yeah, we know who Aaron Rodgers is.
Yeah. He won it. He won his Super Bowl. Basically, what I got from it was he won the Super Bowl, didn't feel fulfilled, got a ton of media attention he didn't like, and then like kind of didn't care anymore. Like,
yeah, I mean,
he wanted to play and win, but you know, he won a Super Bowl, so he was satisfied, and he was looking for bigger and better things in life. So he's going to go sit in a dark hole. Like that was what I got from that. Like the Super Bowl just wasn't enough to make to like fulfill his life. Which okay, fine, but you don't have to be a prick at times and also just be a weirdo. Like
he's a weirdo. Yeah.
So
that's like the whole thing that I felt about. I don't want to keep going back to Ben Johnson, but it's like I just get weird vibes as I have nothing to base it on whatsoever, and this could definitely come back to bite me. But like I just don't get this like supreme strong leader out of Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's come true every time that like we kind of sit down and look at a quarterback or a coach and wonder like, do they have the personality to do it? Because it's more than just being a good football mind or a good football player. Like you have to be a football brain to be successful. And it's just like seeing all these guys like the Hurts and the Ben Johnsons were like, I just don't know if they have that like that toughness, that intensity to them that could take them to the next level.
Mm. Yeah, there's like for the guys that you hold like in the highest regard, to the extent that people are holding Ben Johnson, it's like he probably is obsessed, but I think all of those guys have that like going back to kind of Hurts, like that psycho element to them. Like they're fucking nuts. And I mean, who knows? I feel like we have a better read on Jalen Hurts. I think we hit the nail on the head with that, honestly. With Ben Johnson, it'll be interesting.
I need my coach willing to sign Anthony Brown just to squeeze all the Lamar Jackson info out of him.
Hell yeah.
I want
We're
Brandon
gonna figure
Bean.
It out.
I need Brandon Bean in the trenches doing everything he possibly can to get under Lamar's skin. Like what makes Lamar tick? What makes him do this? What makes him do that? Anthony Brown for like that summer he spent with Lamar. He'll have all the answers. And I want my coach doing digging like that.
If the Bills win this game, I guarantee anybody that plays the Ravens going forward in the playoffs is going to do that. They're going to sign Anthony Brown the week before, or they're going to sign someone close to him.
Yes. They're getting Devin Leary for the 5 minutes he spent as like a 5th round pick from the Ravens this year. Yes, he will be on every roster. I guarantee it. Trace McSorley doesn't matter. Like it's such a genius move. I've never seen it work because the Bengals tried it with the Chiefs last year. I forget with who. Some washed up corner. Really? Yeah, they signed like a Chiefs corner, like a practice squad guy, like the day before, like the week before they played the Chiefs. It didn't work. They lost, but like it was good in theory.
I guess back to the root of all of this. Who are you picking? The Eagles or the Rams?
Eagles. Against what I want to do. If we just want to start this segment up, we'll just go down the list.
Yeah, let's rip it. I think the Eagles.
The Eagles will win. Yes, I'm so close to taking Commanders off of pure principle.
Are you?
Really? I'm not. I can't pull it. The Lions are just a better team, and the way that I look at it, Jaden Daniels did everything in his power to win, and they squeaked by the Buccaneers.
That is true.
So like he would have to do everything he can do, and so would everyone else to beat the Lions. Like it's gonna be a lot harder than it was last week. The Bills one's a lot. That one was probably the hardest one, the closest matchup of the probably of the week.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we know who you're taking.
Yeah, I gotta go with my Bills. It just feels like I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl before the year, and I do kind of do this thing where I'll just like bet the Bills like on FanDuel, like a stupid Super Bowl future, and I've done it the last like 2 or 3 years now, and this year I did it, and the reason why I did it, despite the low expectations from like everybody, was that it this year fell in line with the Chiefs last year in terms of preseason expectations.
Yeah.
Everyone being like, there's no way they're going to be good again because they lost this guy, and this guy. That means they're bound to fall off, right?
And there's no way they beat the Ravens in the playoffs, is what I kept hearing from the Chiefs last year. There's no way they win.
Yes, that is true. I forgot about that.
There's no way the Chiefs win, and then they did. So
and they did. Yeah, Lamar took the.
This is the same exact season.
That's a fair point too. It just felt like it, and now you add that on too. There was just something to it, and obviously this removes anything football related from actually analyzing this, but it just felt different, and it's been different. Like Joe Brady has made Khalil Shakir. I won't even. Dalton Kincaid's been a ghost, so he's not included.
I made a whole post about him.
Here. Yeah, like the weapons that were supposed to be good have been invisible.
My first post I ever had a reasonable viewing was players that are not utilized correctly or not utilized to their strengths, and Dalton Kincaid was my guy for that. I was like, I don't get why Dalton Kincaid was such a good downfield slot presence. You can push him outside, he can press the field down, he can hit the sideline. And it just felt like last game we saw a little bit of Dalton Kincaid, but it felt like all year they've tried to make him something that he's really not. But that's the one thing. That's the only critique I've had about usage from the Bills. James Cook, I think, is being utilized perfectly.
Oh yeah,
Khalil Shakir is being utilized as good of a receiver I've ever seen. Amari Cooper is dead. Matt Collins is awesome. Matt Collins is so much fun.
What a statement. Amari Cooper is... Who would have thought that Amari Cooper would be dead and Matt Collins would be thriving?
Matt Collins wearing shoes is a dangerous man.
He's a different person. He'll go on TikTok and make his maintenance videos, his tech facts with Mac or whatever the fuck he does, his series. And then he gets on the football field and he's stepping on Surtain's head and yelling at everybody. He did some celebration. I think it was in week 18. He was doing the celebration every time he caught the ball, and I wanted to fucking punch him. I don't know what he was doing. But he was
weird.
Tweaking. He is weird.
The Bills have the best collection of underrated stars. Aside from Joe Marino, I have not heard any sort of media talking about Christian Benford as a top corner in the NFL.
All-Pro to me.
I put him, I think, my second team All-Pro, but that feels still significantly higher than any sort of media outlet that I've seen. And I have no bias. I like the Bills. They're in my top 3 teams. But Johnson has been one of the better nickels in all of football for a few years now. But I can't shake him getting hit in the face in the combine that one time. That's all I can think of whenever I see him.
Yeah.
But they've had their entire offensive line is so under. We talked about Spencer Brown last time, where he finally is not hated by the entire city of Buffalo.
Yep.
Deion Dawkins is Deion Dawkins. He's great. The Bills have a great squad. I don't necessarily see what the Ravens are going to do to them in my head, because I think they're a better team. I think both of them are significantly better teams than last time they played. So I'm almost nervous for this game. And not that I'm rooting for you, which I am rooting for the Bills, but I'm just nervous to see who dies, who gets hit hard, who gets trucked by Derrick Henry, who gets trucked by Josh Allen. There's going to be highlight videos from this game forever.
Yeah, people are expecting this game. I mean, I am expecting this game to be game of the year, potentially.
Yeah.
And just the way that the narratives have drawn it out up to this point, it's we've been talking about Allen versus Lamar for how long now? And look, they're playing each other in the divisional round, just like how the NFL scripted it and had it written up, right? But yeah, I mean, my vision to success in this game for Buffalo is going to be praying Zay Flowers is out, which right now seems to be trending in that direction. And it's going to be obviously stopping the zone read somehow. I'm not the guy to figure that out. But
Greg
if you
Rousseau
are,
and his long arms is.
yeah, Greg
Rousseau's
maybe
got it.
Hopefully our interior guys, like I know Ed might get pushed around because he's a smaller body, but we're really going to need our interior defensive line to stand tall. If they can do that, the zone read gets shut down because obviously if they go outside, the longer arms of a guy like Rousseau could be disruptive. And then we play a bunch of man coverage. I think we have the defensive backs compared to the Ravens receivers without Zay Flowers to shut them down. Like I think Milano could handle Likely or Andrews. I think Benford could handle if Benford's going to be the one watching Bateman. Yeah, he can handle anybody. Even
Douglas
Rasul.
Yeah.
Like,
they got him.
We need the interior defensive line to stand tall. If they can, we'll let the edge rusher stop anything on the edge, play some man coverage, and Lamar Jackson's going to have to run.
I think I did figure it out.
Okay, what is it?
So we're going to take Taylor Rapp, and we're going to strap we're taking two Guardian caps this time. We're doubling up. And every time that Lamar Jackson runs, he puts his head down and puts it into his knee every single time. And then when he starts sprawling because he doesn't want to get hit in the knee, his head will be facing down. So the whole game plan basically is Taylor Rapp kills Lamar Jackson on national TV. That's what we got. And if Brandon Beane's really down for it, you find out what Lamar is allergic to, but like really bad. Like if it's shellfish, you send Anthony Brown in there as like we're gonna hug, but he sneaks a crawfish in his pocket. So the next time Lamar like chews his fingers or anything, he's out sick.
He gets an itch or something.
Yes, he's sick.
He's gonna go for the read. He's gonna take the ball on the read option, but have to itch his arm. He's gonna drop it. Yeah, I see
exactly.
That. Okay.
See, I got it down. I've been thinking hard and heavy about how to stop Lamar for years, and I think an assault with allergen is the best possible way to do so.
At this point, no one else has come up with a better option, so we have to start thinking outside the box.
I mean, he's about to win 3 MVPs, so yeah. The AFC feels like anything could happen.
Oh yeah.
Really, except for the Texans. I think they actually have a chance to beat the Chiefs, but they kind of got beat up last time. This is the one game that we didn't even really bother predicting because it kind of goes without saying. But it does feel like to me this is the best chance of an upset,
100%,
because of just like the way that the Chiefs have, like the offense has been so up and down, and their defense and special teams have won them a few games. But if the Texans look the way they did last game on defense, it could be like an actual upset.
Yeah,
I am actually so stoked as a team. I mean, I'm not as much of a Chiefs hater as most Bengals fans are. But like, I am still really, really rooting for a CJ Stroud win, like bad.
It's gonna take CJ's gonna have to play a full game of whatever he was on after that fumble 3rd and 16 conversion.
God,
but it could be the Texans defense played, as good as you can ask any unit. Like they have the talent. Yeah. To me, they're probably just as close to they're closer to the Eagles defense than any other defense remaining in the postseason. And with that said, if there's a unit that can slow down what's been a very mucky, slow, uninspiring Chiefs offense, it's them. So this could be a grudge match that, who knows, is low scoring. It could come down to, one mistake by one of the quarterbacks or, a receiver fumbling. That could be the difference. I think -8 is pretty crazy. Like that's what the Chiefs are. Like,
yeah, they won by 8 last time. I'm pretty sure. Like, I think it was 27-19,
something like that. It was like 23-17, something like that. Somewhere in that range.
It was less than 8. It was 8 or less, I believe.
And it was lower scoring.
Having Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson against really the only weakness on the Chiefs in their tackles is kind of a nightmare scenario. Like if those two dudes are on, they're athletes. Like, they are absolute athletes. So like the whole Mahomes scramble out to the right or the left when you have Will Anderson chasing you, like that dude's a different level athlete. He's not somebody you want to be scrambling on. I'm picking the Texans. This is my
man. This is your Steelers. This is your Steelers moment.
Yes. I'm picking the Texans to win this game. I talked myself into it. The prophecy is this way.
There is a much stronger, more possible vision with this than there was with what I tried to suggest last week.
Yeah.
So, I look, and the sad part about this is that whoever the Texans were to play in the next round would stomp the fuck out of them. So that's the part that to me, like, the Chiefs are just bad enough on offense to where the defense could win them the game, but not the following week. It would be, I think it'd be very ugly for them, whether it was Buffalo
I'm taking
or
a Kiami Fairbairn 56-yard field goal to win the game. Going like the Texans win by 3 points or less. That's my goal.
Wow. Well, I wish you luck. Like, I'm more than here for the upset, so I'm not going to root against that.
I felt boring doing the whole going like 2 weeks in a row. I had just chalk.
Was there anything else you felt like you wanted to touch on?
It appears no. I hit all my points.
All right, yeah, me too. I think we touched on a lot. I think we got through the coaches pretty well. I got everything out that I needed to say about the coaches, so that was good. But yeah, I think that's it. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, stopping in.
Thank you very much.
Subscribe, like, follow if you enjoy. If you have any closing thoughts.
I have zero closing thoughts, but we are always willing to listen to suggestions for content, different kind of bits we could do. But overall, I just hope everybody enjoys it. Leave any feedback. We're open to anything. And especially if I sent you, thank you very much. We will see you next time.
Yes, see you next time. And we don't have an outro, so I guess just bye.
No, but I would like to hit that like 2013 little...